The February 9th, 2023 meeting of the Corvallis School Board is called to order at 6:33 p.m. In the interest of public health and safety for all community members, especially for immunocompromised individuals and their families, the Corvallis School Board will continue to offer a virtual option for board member and district personnel participation. Additionally, public comment is available at some meetings, including tonight, both in person and virtually. Information about how to provide public comment is available on the Corvallis School District website. The board agenda and packet, as well as the link to the district YouTube channel, are available on the school board page on the district website. Public meetings are live streamed on the district's YouTube channel, and a recording is posted to the same channel, typically the day after the meeting. Tonight we have myself, Director Finger McDonald, Director Tomini, and Director Al Abdraba here in person. Director Adams and Directors Baker are participating remotely, and Directors Jones and White Bear are not with us this evening. So the first item on the agenda tonight is board member reports. Does anybody have anything they would like to share?
Just with Leadership Corvallis Education Day, it's folks who are through professional development opportunities, and Kim, Sabrina, and Aaron, and it was phenomenal. I feel sitting during the districts with community members and leaders.
Any other comment this evening or reports? Several of us this last week attended the Corvallis Public Schools Foundation Hands Across Corvallis, and as always, it was a great event to celebrate our partnership with the foundation and the work they do for our students and our staff, and I want to express my appreciation to the community members who came and who have been so supportive of that organization that then supports us. So as always, it was a great event. Okay, so on to the so the next item on the agenda is the OSBA and National School Board Association's updates. You've provided us with a report. Do you have anything additional you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say I shared the written reports about activities with OSBA and SBA, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Sammy? Okay, so moving on to the superintendent's report.
All right, my report this month is mostly notification about upcoming events for you all to participate in and be a part of. But there are a couple of important topics that I also want to bring to your attention. So as you know, the governor brought forth her budget for education in her state budget, and her number was $9.94 billion for education for the next biennium, so over the next 2 years, which was $400 million more than the recommendation from the state budget office. So we're encouraged by the number that the governor brought forward. At the same time, we know across the state of Oregon, the number that would allow us to continue to provide the services at the level that we're currently providing them at is $10.3 billion, and so we have a ways to go. At the same time, it was really a promising result for Governor Kotek to move to $9.9 billion while trying to address so many needs across the state. So I'm optimistic about that, and at the same time, that doesn't mean that the advocacy is over. It means that the advocacy needs to continue with the local representatives and senators that we have access to, as well as the legislative committee with OSBA and Sammy, your role as well. So there's work to be done. Again, we know that we won't have a final number till the end of the session, which will be after we've gone through the budget process and have an approved budget by the budget committee. At the same time, we have work to do. So I just want to highlight that's a positive result, and there's still needs that are not being addressed at this point in the process. Another thing I wanted to highlight is that I've been able to be a part of some conversations locally around affordable housing. You're going to have a report tonight from the city, some changes that are being considered. At the same time, I want just as ideas or suggestions come to you, please keep me in mind. I began to meet with a group that includes the Boys and Girls Club, Oregon State, Samaritan, and some other local nonprofits to talk about ways to think about housing for staff that support all of our organizations, community members as well. And so just as ideas come up, please let me know. And I also want to just make sure that there's support from this board for me to continue that work moving forward. So if you want to talk about it individually, please let me know. Otherwise, I think that's an important thing for us to be continuing to think about as a community. Ideally, I would like housing that's affordable for our students who are graduating and moving away to be able to come back at some point in time. And I also understand that at this point in time, that's a challenge for many people, and it's work that needs to happen. So that is where we are right now, and I just wanted to highlight that for you. Again, I have the sense from this board, historically you've been supporters of affordable housing, and I wouldn't anticipate that changing, but if you have other views, please let me know. Again, now there's mostly topics about things for you to come and participate in. So tomorrow morning, if you're able to, at the district office, the College Hill Alternative Pathways Construction Program is going to be sharing their work on their micro shelters tomorrow at 10:15. So if you're able to join me, that would be great. A student representative from College Hill kicked that idea off. And so for us to be able to go and participate would be really great. So if you're able to make it, you're all invited. Also, this is an FYI. One of the innovation grants was for an art exhibit. Krista Schmieder, who's here tonight, that was her innovation grant, and it's been supported by the foundation, and there's going to be art on display at the Calapoolia building, which is the new building for Benton County, coming up later in April. And so I just want to make sure that that's on your radar as well. Students from across the district will be able to go and see students' art on display in that space. And so again, as we get closer, I'll provide some information about a time for you all to be able to go and participate. Also, we have the exciting time at Bessie Coleman Elementary coming up. So on February 16th from 4 to 5 p.m., Gigi Coleman will be here talking about her as a descendant of Bessie Coleman and also someone who advocates for women, particularly women of color, in flight. And so she's going to be at the school. There's a couple of assemblies that day. And then the open house for the community is 4 to 5. So again, it's a chance for people to see the new school, the new space, and recognize the new name. So that's an exciting thing as well. Also this week is National School Counseling Week. So our school counselors are recognized this time of year for all the incredible work that they do, both in the ways that they support our youth, prepare them for the future, and all that they do to help students to be prepared for school. Ready to be there and successful. And so this is a week that we recognize their work. So if you have a chance, both students and staff, to recognize our school counselors, please do so. Again, we have some incredible folks working in our district. And we're also fortunate to have the supports that we have in place, again, supported through our community and our local option levy and to some degree. And then I think up behind me now, or will be, is the U.S. Mint. We were contacted about the coin that represents and shares the story of Bessie Coleman. And so those were sent out at the beginning of January. If folks are interested in purchasing those, they can go to the U.S. Mint website. But again, they reached out to us because of the process underway in our renaming. And again, just a great reflection of an incredible person. And, you know, as I talked about last time, for a student to have a coin that represents the namesake of their school, again, they know her story. And so that's the power in changing the name of a school. So with that, I'd be open to any questions that people have.
Questions?
What was the date Gigi Coleman was going to be at Busy Coleman?
It is on the 16th, so next week. 4 to 5 is the open house. I'm really excited about that. I have one more announcement, and that is Jason Hay, who's the assistant superintendent for the ESD. He's here tonight as well. Last time we looked at the local service plan, and then it's on the agenda tonight for action. So if there's questions for Jason when we get to that point, I'm sure he'd be happy to come up and answer them. Again, my philosophy around the ESD is that it provides services across our region, particularly to smaller districts that don't have the opportunity to have full positions. And the ESD does a great job of providing things in business services, in special education, in technology, and in curriculum and instruction. And so we, as superintendents, have a chance annually to look at that local service plan and make adjustments, and then it comes to each school board for approval, and then back to the ESD board. So again, as a larger district in our region, it's important for us to support that local service plan because it has a significant impact on some of the smaller districts in our region. Now I'm done.
Now you're done? Okay, so next we have our student representatives. So we start with Emily and Lucy from Corvallis High School.
Our production of Cinderella opening night is on February 23rd and will go till March 12th, so make sure to get your tickets. Our winter sports are coming to an end, and our spring sports will start towards the end of this month.
Our junior class presidents have acquired a date for the prom. It will be May 20th, and they also acquired a DJ. The Bake Sale Club at Corvallis High School is raising money for Jackson Street Youth Services, and tonight is the last night to buy your cookies or just donate some money. And Emily and I are working on creating a talent show that will hopefully be May 19th or someday around then. And students are wanting urinal dividers in the men's bathrooms.
And Emily and Lucy just presented in front of half of the CHS staff, so a job well done.
Okay, Charlotte and Zoe from CV.
Okay, so we're 1 week into second semester, so we're getting used to some different schedules. And next week on Valentine's Day during lunch, our club called Musicians for Humanity is doing a concert/bake sale to raise money, I believe for UNICEF. And then on February 23rd is opening night for Cinderella at CHS. But what's really unique about this show is the director emphasized having a lead cast of CV students because our theater program historically has not been as good as CHS's. And then also on March 8th, so a day before our next meeting, we have our 8th grade open house, so we're going to be excited to welcome some new CV Raiders. And one thing that a lot of students have been concerned about, especially juniors, is there's not a lot of SAT and ACT opportunities here in Corvallis, especially in the spring. Right now, there's just March, I believe 11th, and I mean, for me, it's the same day as basketball state, but it's also one day in the spring can be kind of difficult for students, and so that is something I'm getting a lot of concerns about.
So in terms of sports, quality of the basketball court, that was another concern. I think Charlotte might know more about it, but do you want to say?
Sure. So after construction over the summer, we found that our basketball court was kind of damaged. There's a lot of chips in the polish on the floor, and so it's proving to be kind of very slippery. And so that was just a concern as basketball season is underway.
This Friday, boys and girls swimming have districts, and cheer has state Saturday, and then next Friday, there's wrestling districts, and boys and girls basketball are on to the second half of league. So yeah.
That's all we have. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And just also, one of the things that we're working on with our student reps is the new student rep policy, and we're in the process of scheduling a second meeting to talk about that. So that work will be ongoing as we make the student reps something that's written into policy and not just something that's a tradition.
So I'm going to cover the College Hill report tonight. Eric sent me his comments, and you'll hear Eric throughout them. But I'm going to go ahead and share those. And also, just so you know, the issue with the court, what we ran into is timing before volleyball could get in. And so we know that that's a problem that we need to fix, but we won't be able to fix it till next summer. So just as you go back and talk to your teammates, it was sort of a compromise we had to make to get volleyball started at the end of construction. Yeah, totally. And then I'll take back the information about the SAT and ACT dates, and also the question to facilities around the partitions in the bathroom. So I'm taking notes as we go along. So the College Hill report, the College Hill students weren't able to be here tonight. So the College Hill SAFE team put on an incredible assembly today for our students. Each month they invite community members from different backgrounds to share their stories of their experience growing up and living in Corvallis. This month, Jake Moivau was our speaker. He shared his story of growing up in a Samoan neighborhood of greater Los Angeles and his adult experience living in Corvallis. He was a story of encouragement, hope, and inspiration. He has an incredible ability to connect with other students, to help them see themselves in his story, and to help them see how they could make the best of their situation and make their future something exciting and full of life. Here are some words of wisdom that he shared. Surround yourself with people who will make you better. You can be close friends with people who disagree with you, so long as you have mutual respect. We all have a responsibility to give back to our communities. None of us are accidents. We all have something good to offer the world, and Jordan's 4s are the best dress shoes there are. Our students were so eager to hear his story, and many stayed after to ask further questions, to connect with him, and to share some of their own experiences with him. The SAFE team and the post-secondary team worked together to bring a speaker for our students who have successfully navigated the transition from high school students to adults. Next month, we have a local representative from the Oregon Hospitality and Tourism Board. So that's the update from College Hill. And again, if you're able to join me tomorrow morning, that would be great.
Thank you all, and thank you, Ryan, for being our College Hill representative today. So the next item on our agenda is public comment. So I will now open the public hearing for testimony. The complete guidelines for public comment are available on the registration table at the back of the gym and on the board's website. I will share a few important points now. When it is your turn to speak, please come forward, have a seat. You can press the button to turn on the microphone and state your name and direct your comments to the board. Speakers may offer objective criticisms of district operations and programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning individual district personnel. As a reminder, you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. The lights on this front table will indicate the time, so when you have 30 seconds left, the yellow light goes on, and then when your time is up, the red light goes on. When you have lots of time, the green light is on. And following your comments, the board will have 3 minutes to ask clarifying questions, so don't just get up and run away. We might have something to ask you. Before you start your comment, again, please state your name for the record and state whether you reside within the school district boundary. Thanks. So who do we have first?
Is it on? Okay. Oh, it's me. That's awkward. I'm Krista Schmieder. I teach at Corvallis High School. I'm also the CEA union president, and I have kids at Lincoln here and also at LP in 6th grade. Is there anything else? Is that it? Okay. So I'm here tonight with the CHS staff behind me and the College Hill staff. Not everybody could be here. A lot of folks live out of town, so we appreciate you thinking about affordable housing for kids and staff so that more of our staff can live here and bring their kids here and be part of the community after hours and participate in things like this. You might have noticed that every board meeting we've had different schools here, and that's going to continue to be a thing while we're in bargaining. We really want to just remind you of all the awesome staff you have here, and we know the budget just came out and that the governor didn't give us as much money as we wanted, and we wanted, before you ask, that we are doing things to pressure for more money so that you can spend more money on the staff and keeping things going here. The staff is just really exhausted, and we're not doing well. And I'm really good about keeping on a nice face about it, but we have a lot of people experiencing some really awful things. And a lot of really good teachers working second jobs or trying to find another career or thinking about anything they can do so that they don't get cancer or that they don't become a terrible partner or that they don't yell at their kids again at home because they've used every ounce of their grace with their kids. And it's really hard for me to work so hard and feel like I'm making such little progress on making it right. And so I just wanted to say, like, every dollar you get from the government, like, spend it on the staff, like the certified staff, the classified staff. Like, we need to keep these people. I don't want to lose any of these people. Our building's looking at cutting 3 people, 3 of our close friends with the current budget. And that's really hard to think about, like, who we would lose. So anyway, we're trying to get more money. The teachers aren't okay. We know the kids aren't okay, but the teachers are not okay. We're working really hard to take care of each other, but I don't know how much longer we can do this. So that's my plea, and that's why I'm here. And if you have any questions, I don't know if I can answer them well, but I would like to try if you have any. That's it. And it's not you guys. We love you guys. We love our kids. Teaching is the best part of our day. There's just like so much else on top of it. So it's not you guys. There's just so much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
What are the ways that you're trying to raise money?
So the teachers union has kind of 3 parts. There's the CEA, which is the local union, and we get together and we do things like we've gone to events at the Capitol, we write our legislators, we talk with our state reps to say, like, this is how we're spending your money, like, they need more, they're trying to make really good decisions. The second part is the OEA, which is the Oregon Education Association, and we have a whole group of people that work on lobbying with the government to get more money put in the hands of these people so they can do what they want, so that we can do what we want. And then on top of that is the NEA, which is the National Education Association, and that works with the federal government to give the states more so that the states can give it to us so that we can do what we need so that we can give you what you want and you can get a new basketball like gym and all the things. And so all 3 of those levels have political action committees that work on trying to get more funds for schools. Also, teachers get a $250 tax write-off every year because we spend so much of our own money in our classrooms. And most of the people here spend a significant amount of their own money on what their kids need so that it fills in the gaps. So, and then sometimes I text Ryan and say, bring me a coffee. No, I'm just kidding. I've never done that. I came close this week. But yeah, so we're trying really hard from like 3 different levels because we know that it starts at the top with the federal government and then comes down to local control. That's a great question.
Would there be ways for students to help advocate for their teachers as well, or help out with this
That's
stuff?
so sweet. It makes me cry that you asked. Yes, so when we had an event, and Sammy was there, and Therese Jones was there, and you were there, we went up to the Capitol, and we marched around and talking about the Student Success Act and getting more monies for schools, and there were a lot of students that participated in that. There's also ways where there are student chapters that support the local work of the unions, and if you look at the OEA website, you can find out stuff about that. A lot of times we train you on organizing and how to do that, and like grassroots efforts and things. And I think also just, just speaking off the top of my head, coming up with school-wide campaigns, peacemaking starts with smiling, right? And saying hi. And I've watched one of our assistant principals say, happy Tuesday to someone, and a student say, F you. And that was the response, and that's really challenging to deal with. And so I think just like some grassroots, be kind to each other, because watching you guys, not you guys, but watching your peers be mean to each other is really hard for all of us, because we love all of you. And I think just realizing we're people too, and we've got a lot of stuff going on, and we're doing our best. But there are local efforts at the state level, and I'm sure Sammy's like the master organizer. I'm sure he could come up with some ways that you could get involved too on the COSA side. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. It is good to see staff and to be reminded of the people who are the boots on the ground for us. So the next item on our agenda is a report on property tax exemptions and a housing report from Brigitte Olson, so we can continue to try to work on affordable housing.
I sent you an email, Kim, if that would, that's okay. And you also have my presentation, if that's just easier to go that way. I'll just start by saying I'm Brigitte Olson. I'm the Housing and Neighborhood Services Manager at the City of Corvallis. This is my neighborhood. This is my old elementary school, at least my daughters who graduated here last year. And I got to walk here. And so my love is strong for this neighborhood. And I've been working in community development and affordable housing for over 2 decades. And it's only getting worse, right? And we know that staff here can't afford to live in our community, that we know that we've lost kiddos in our district because families can't afford to live here anymore. And part of my role at the city is to help figure out ways to increase affordable housing and housing in general in our community. And so with that, I'm hoping brilliant. It's YouTube, so that was very confusing to me of how I could get on.
And so as you're preparing, just for the board to have the sense of the information tonight, so this isn't for action, this is for information. We will need to have a follow-up conversation, probably with legal counsel related to the processes we would follow as we are a participant in each of these processes. So again, tonight you may leave with some questions that are still left unanswered, and that will be expected, and we'll be getting more information to you as we move along. So tonight, I think if you just have the opportunity to listen to the presentation, I'm going to continue to collect questions that I will need to further investigate, and then we'll come back to you in the future with additional specifics and potentially action.
You'd think after 2.5 years of COVID that this would be easy. Okay. Hopefully my screen shows up. Brilliant. Okay. So tonight I'm going to talk about property tax exemptions, specifically low-income housing property tax exemption program, and then the multi-unit or multiple unit property tax exemption program. You know, Corvallis is number one, and number one not being a good thing in this regard. It's the most severely rent-burdened community in the state of Oregon. And approximately 37% of renting households in the city are spending more than 50% of their income on their housing. What that means is that families and individuals are having to make hard choices between food on the table, paying for rent, being able to afford school supplies, going to the doctor, etc. There are tools that I'm hoping that the city will adopt that will help us increase housing supply, and that's through some of these property tax exemptions. Exemptions are legislatively approved programs that can be utilized by organizations for all or part of the property tax. The relief would be applied on a case-by-case or development-by-development basis. I'm not talking about property tax exemptions for everything, every new housing coming up in our community. It would be specifically for individual projects or future developments that apply for this and show a financial need. And if the program criteria is met and review approves the application, property tax exemptions is granted for a specified amount of time. City of Corvallis, we have a strategic operating plan, much like you have a strategic plan. In our operating plan, we have goals, one of which, of course, the city leverages community development resources to prioritize housing affordability and fair housing issues by evaluating property tax exemptions for affordable housing. These tools were recommended by the Housing Development Task Force, and so both the nonprofit low-income housing, rental housing property tax exemption, along with the MUPD, so the multi-unit exemption for market rate housing. And in my tenure, I've been at the city now for 2 years. I've gotten multiple calls from housing developers, both around the state, in our community, and across the nation, asking whether we have these specific tools in our toolbox to help incentivize future housing development. Why offer exemptions? You know, offering property tax exemptions for affordable housing and multi-unit dwellings can help make a project pencil. It can make it more affordable or easier for a developer to be able to build that new development so that we can house additional individuals and families. And we're not rushing into this idea. Actually, the legislature passed provisions as early as 1975 for property tax exemptions. They are a direct subsidy to the development and therefore should be evaluated by return on investment and public benefit provided. If adopted, we could see near-term impacts to the city and other taxing districts, but also long-term tax revenue increases for some of the tools. Or if we're talking about affordable housing, we see a public benefit. We see the ability for low-income families to be able to have a place to call home in our community. And I think we should really be thoughtful about utilizing this tool in the Urban Renewal District. We're sitting here in the Cara Urban Renewal District, but our recommendation would be not to be able to use property tax exemptions in this specific district, because these tools can act very similar to an Urban Renewal District, just a case-by-case basis. This is our current property tax dollar and how it's split up when you're thinking about $1. So 46% goes to the schools, including LBCC 509J. 32.5% goes to the city. 16% goes to Benton County, and 5.1 special districts, 911, extension, soil. There's a lot of different cities across the state that have been utilizing these tools. And so the nonprofit LRPD, Bend recently adopted in 2022. Eugene's had it since 2011. Wilsonville 2012. LRPD for-profits, again, that's low-income rental property tax exemption. Bend had it in 2003. and Wilsonville 2012, and Eugene 1990. And then the multi-unit property tax exemption, and this is for multi-unit or multiple unit properties that could be market rate. Bend recently adopted, Cottage Grove 2019, Salem 2012. So again, we're not rushing into this. I'm going to dive a little deeper into each individual exemption. So the low-income housing property tax exemptions, or LRPT, for nonprofits, 501c3 organizations. 100% property tax exemption could be used with no limit as long as the criteria is met. If approved, the units are limited to renters at 60% area median income or less. Local government may choose to allow eligible income to rise to 80% area median income after the first year of occupancy. I would recommend that. The reason being, it allows a developer to have an average of 60% area median income while sometimes serving very vulnerable populations at 30% area median income all the way up to 80%. So you have a mixture of incomes within a property, which is very healthy from my perspective. Can be existing housing or new development or land held for development. Again, city staff were recommending along to council that we would recommend this tool just for future housing development. There is an annual application, but no limit on length of exemption. And then local government can and does sometimes add additional criteria. This tool, which is similar, but it's for for-profit entities, this would be limited to individuals' families at 60% area median income with no increase to 80, like I just talked about. It's for-profit developers, only new construction and land being held for future development. There's no minimum number of units in the statute. Exemption is for 20 years, but it could be renewed. Local government can and does sometimes add additional criteria. So what does this mean in numbers? So the area median income, this is actually 2022 Corvallis median income. We didn't get the numbers yet for 2023. But if you look at 60% area median income, you're generally talking about for families, a family of 4, the families making 57,000 or less would be eligible for these housing units potentially. And then if you're talking about averaging, so a household of 4, 68,450 or less. So important to think about some of our extremely low-income neighbors at 30% area median income, and for family of 4 at 30% is making 28,550 or less. So just some success stories or examples. In 1990, Eugene has had this tool for a pretty long time. They've been able to help incentivize the development of 1,600 affordable housing units in Eugene since it began. And currently Salem has 395 affordable units enrolled in their program, including 180 new units, 11 in pre-development, 204 units. Redesigned to be affordable units. So we're market rate and they're transforming it into affordable through likely acquisition. The multi-unit property tax exemption, this is for market rate housing. First floor would be commercial, and second, third, fourth, et cetera, would be could be market rate. This would be a tool used for new construction, existing land or land held for development of all eligible, must be at least 4 units. Generally speaking, for these tools, they're going to be more than 4 units, but from a consistency standpoint, city staff are recommending 4 for both the affordable housing and the multiple unit property tax exemption. Local government would add additional criteria to have a public benefit associated with this tool, and we've created a matrix that will help determine some of the public benefit that would help, along with one of the provisions that I like a lot because I'm a houser and I really like affordable housing. It's having some either set aside for affordable units or pay for future affordable development. So 15% set aside for affordable units with the MUMPTI, or 10% pay in for future affordable development. The tools that housing developers utilize are pretty for affordable are pretty wonky, and it would be unlikely that the multi-unit developer would be able to access some of the other tools. So I would imagine we would see more pay-in to future developments opposed to being able to subsidize 15% of the units, but giving options. And then talking about some of the public benefits. So when you're talking about market rate housing, that, you know, in being able to get a tax, property tax exemption, there should be a public benefit. And these are the lists of public benefits that could be utilized. We would want to see at least one big public benefit or at least 3 semi-decently sized public benefits so that we're helping incentivize, you know, future development, economic catalytic effect, could be placemaking or active public spaces, et cetera. Eugene restructured theirs in 2015 and made it to 7 core public benefits. They right now had 381 units have been approved since the program in 2015. Developing on the riverfront has revitalized existing structures and allowed for additional housing types. And community benefit increasing funding towards future affordable development. So like I talked about earlier. And then Ben just recently adopted the MUMPD as well. So tax revenue for the MUMPD. We're talking, if you're following city land use policy, we recently adopted some new zones. So commercial mixed use, we have 1, 2, and 3. And so scattered throughout the city. 3 is downtown, 2 is around 9th Street, 1 is around Monroe and other neighborhoods. We're recommending for all 3 zones, primarily in 1, I believe, just Madison on Monroe, excuse me. But again, this is supposed to be a commercial mixed use. So first floor would be commercial, second, third, fourth, fifth, 6 stories would be multi-unit residential. Looking at some land with a 1-story commercial lot downtown, current assessed value is less than $500,000, generating $8,700 of property taxes a year. Let's fast forward 11 years from now. Let's say they are able to develop 80 units of housing after 10 years, there would be $88,000 of tax revenue back into the community. And then another example of a current empty lot in downtown with current assessed value is less than $100,000. Current property taxes is less than $2,000. And then after the 11th year, or after the 10th year, there would be $88,000 of tax revenue. So here, again, you're looking through for 10 years, and this is just for the MUMPD example. The other thing that you're not seeing is housing, right? The whole thing is about housing. So year 0 through there, you know, hopefully by year 2 or 3 it's built, you have some housing, but if we just stay green, raw land, we're not helping increase our supply. And with the MUMPD, the red line, you increase your supply, you are able to help address some of the housing continuum, addressing multi-unit market rate housing, you're addressing affordable housing through the LRPD, you're helping the housing continuum so folks who are sort of bottlenecked because there's nowhere to go and move up to in our community from either affordable housing into market rate into home ownership, et cetera. We need multiple different kinds of strategies and multiple different tools in our toolbox to incentivize and help develop housing, and this is just one of them. And then this is how the revenue would be split after the 11th year or after the 10th year of having the MUPD. And with that, you know, just closing thought is this is not a panacea. As I'm looking at what kind of tools my division has in our toolbox, not every tool is going to work for every development, and so we need to have access to different tools to be able to help get more housing built. And so this would not be a blanket exemption. This is a case-by-case basis, and what that looks like is an applicant would apply through and go to the city manager. The application would come to the city housing division. We would review it. We would have outside financial evaluator review the pro forma and really have to demonstrate need, that there's a financial need for this. We would then be, we need 51% of taxing districts in our, to sign on. So the city would need the county and other taxing districts, or just the 509J, to sign on and approve in order to approve an exemption. And this would be a case-by-case basis. I haven't worked out all the nuances because it's a new potential program, and I think we would learn a lot in the first couple years if adopted. Council has gone and reviewed and had 2 work sessions around this topic. They're set to potentially adopt it later this month. And then if we get, applications coming in, we would be looking at taxing districts to potentially approve it. Questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. It was very informative. I have a question about at that 11th year, when the tax exemptions expire, do the criteria disappear then too for the purpose that held in place that tax exemption in terms of the use of
You
the
can set
development?
it in different ways. So I would have to talk to some of our other colleagues around the state who have done the MUPD. So some placemaking, I think some of it would already be there naturally. And from affordability, you can make it require the units be affordable for 30 to 60 years, even though the tax exemption period has ended. So there's terms in which we would have guidance.
Sure. Okay, so then the benefit would be short-term for the developer just to get it.
You
up
need
and running with
financial,
that.
yeah. And I would say the world has turned upside down with development from housing, right? Like you have interest rate increases. At one point during the pandemic, the lumber cost 30% more than it did. And so developers are really needing extra tools in order to figure out ways to develop. And if we're talking about the downtown core, it's even more challenging to develop because you don't have a place to stage everything. You're not just developing on open land, right? So where are you going to put the materials? How are you going to close down the streets, et cetera?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Rita, I want to thank you and thank the city for working with the district on this great idea. And leaning on Ryan's notes, I just want to show really serious interest in this, and also acknowledging there's more thoughts and work to be done to get it right. And also, it's not the only item in the toolkit of affordable housing. We need to make sure we find out more opportunities to build housing for our educators and workers, etc. So that's in mind. I do have some questions, but first I want to say I'm really supportive. I would like to look forward for an action where we can support this. Number one, I want to just echo the same observation my colleague mentioned. The red line with the taxes, I want to make sure that it's not going to be removing those who are benefiting from the affordable housing and be paid by people who are going to be able to pay higher rent. So that's number one. Number two is, why not apply the MUPT to urban renewal? And I'm going to share with you my thoughts. One benefit of urban renewal, we already waived those taxes for some years in order to develop this area. And we're not taking money from this area for a while. So if we go with MUPT in this area, of course we're going to take money from the urban renewal. So it's not getting benefits because they're not putting those taxes. So I can see that motivation, and also I understand urban renewal has its own tools to build affordable housing. Unintended consequence I'm worried about, which is potential gentrification of the area that we want to do urban renewal, because now developments of new housing will be focused outside using this tool. And I'm worried that might create imbalance and not really address the whole purpose of urban renewal, making people able to afford to be here and benefit and really creates more economic development here. So what do you think about that?
So the urban renewal district that we have in this neighborhood, we have 8.5 million set aside for affordable housing development and 10.5 million. So this is like, I'm relying on 2019 data, so, for market rate housing. So there's going to be resources. Not quite yet, right? So we haven't seen a lot of development in the past couple of years, so we don't have a lot of resources. I think the urban renewal is sort of like the MUPD on steroids. And so, certainly something we could consider. But we have not only this tool, particularly if we're talking about affordable housing. No affordable housing that I am aware of could just develop on using the LRPD program, using low-income property tax exemptions. They're going to go leverage state and federal resources, and that resource will remain long-term affordable. Any money that our city is putting in from construction excess tax is 60 years affordability, and the MUPD, I don't see a real benefit of adding two of those tools in this community particularly, but I'm certainly open to having future conversations and learning more and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. With the intention of really long-term looking at this gauge, are we having more development here as intended, or is that going to slow down development here?
And so good news is in the next couple years, we're going to see 320 plus new units of affordable housing in Corvallis, and that's the most in my 20-year career, and that's going to be happening in a couple of years. Just down the road, we're going to see 174 units of affordable housing, which is fabulous, and there's another 60 that will be in Southtown too. So we're starting to see, thank goodness, some more homes that will be developed, and that's just not including what, having additional tools and what that could do.
Yeah. Another question, how can we prioritize the 30% over the 50%, over the 60%. I can see it's in this rule, it's a switch. If you're lower than that, you can access this housing. And just thinking in a pure capitalistic approach, people will raise the rent all the way until the 59% or 49%. So is there a way for us to really actually make more priority for those who are at 30%, they can access those housing more than anybody else?
Certainly, scoring criteria. We do that for some of our existing tools in our toolbox for capital, so absolutely. And the state does that also. So you score more points if you're going to serve more vulnerable populations, et cetera.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, Vince.
To you anyway. And while you were speaking, I was doing the happy dance because you're talking density, and I really love the idea of that in urban development. So this board has consistently heard from our staff about the struggle to obtain housing here in Corvallis. We hear that around our families as well. This board has paid close attention to youth homelessness and family homelessness. And so this is aimed directly at that. And so in my heart, I'm definitely there, and I get the idea. And Sammy, to address your question about why not in the urban renewal district, both of these schemes, urban renewal and the MUPD and its cousins, are tax diversion mechanisms. But with urban renewal, we divert the tax revenue into the district. In the MUPD, the tax revenue is deferred back to the developer. And so you wouldn't, in an urban renewal district, we wouldn't want to do that because we want it to go in the district. And so they would obviate themselves. So that's why we wouldn't want to use those. That said, in South Corvallis, the urban renewal district really is concentrated on the Highway 99 corridor and is only a few blocks back. And so there's other areas in South Corvallis where these programs would be highly effective and would be very useful. Brigitte, my question is, looking at the other municipalities that are using these tools, What are do you have a sense of the or the folks that are moving into these housing developments? Um, and then once you get your answer, then I'll explain why I'm asking that question.
The population is,
Yeah,
Vince, is that
once these are built, who's moving in? What does that population look like?
hardworking folks who are needing to have a break and being able to support a family and make ends meet. And so being able to have a vibrant neighborhood where your kids can walk across the street to a wonderful neighborhood school like this one, and having the local commitment is so key for being able to get financing from the state. And so this tool or these tools would allow us as a community to say, yes, we want that housing in our neighborhood, we support it, and that will then allow that developer to leverage state and federal resources, score more points, which gets more money, which then helps the development happen here.
So the reason why I'm asking is whenever thinking about a proposal, it's like, and particularly when I have such a strong positive reaction, I always go, okay, why not? Why shouldn't we do this? And the argument here is that, you know, if we're going to defer taxes, that means that we have to defer revenue. And in this situation, it's probably going to be fairly modest. But your observation about that these are going to be working families that are going to be moving into these housing tells me that this may be a really good solution or part of a solution for addressing the declining enrollment issue that this district is facing, and really a way to start turning the demographic shift that we're seeing here in Corvallis as our community gets older and older, and it's becoming hard to raise a family here. It's just too expensive, and so families are going to other communities. And so this could create an opportunity for families to again start considering Corvallis as a place to raise their kids. And so I think that this could be actually, have a modest or maybe modest negative impact on our on revenue, or maybe even be revenue neutral for us because we would have increased state school funding because we'd have more kids. So
And,
I think this is a great idea.
and I think your last point, Vince, is really important, and Superintendent can speak more to this more eloquently than I can, but there's a state backfill that happens associated with the lost revenue for the property taxes. And so although you would be seeing a decline, you would get a state backfill, not to the same degree, as I understand it, and if you want to help articulate that.
Well, we know that the taxes go into the state fund, and then they're dispersed from the state. So while it will impact the funds that go to the state, it will be such a small amount that it will have limited impact on us locally. A couple other contextual things to keep in mind. Remember, we have about 500 students graduating over the next 4 years. We have about 350 students coming into school over the next 4 years. We know that based on enrollment patterns and birth rates. So we know that we will have potentially 600 fewer students in our system in 4 years because Corvallis is not an affordable place to raise a family, and we have to look at ways for people to be able to live here with families. And any mechanism that we can consider that will help us to do that has a significant impact on us, for us as well, in a positive way. We will be a district in declining enrollment for the next 5 years if things don't change. And so while it's a small amount, the significance of having kids coming into our schools is vital for us to continue to have the programs that we have, the staff that we have, the ability to meet the diverse needs of our kids in our community. It is generated by having students in our system, and right now we're moving in the wrong direction in this community.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Brigida.
Thank you.
So the other questions that I have that I need to get more clarification around, not tonight from Brigida, but just as we think about our role in this. Again, each application requires approval by 51% of the taxing jurisdiction, and we make up about 38% of that. So that's a piece that's going to be important for you to have this information. Secondly, in the ORS, there's language around resolution, and there's also questions about approval. And so what I'm wanting to look into is the requirements and time periods around approval. So if there's an application that's put in, does that mean we have to hold a special meeting to get that approved? Is that something you would delegate to the superintendent? In my role, that we would bring forward annually in that list of approvals that come in June? Those are the kinds of questions that we need to get answered by legal counsel and have some information back to you. So those are the things I know that are top of mind for me as we think about how to be responsive as applications come in, and also address what kind of burden that's going to place on board members. So those are the things I'm looking into right now, and we'll have more information for you. I'm also waiting to see approval by the city to go too far down that road of getting those questions answered, but it sounds like things are moving in that direction. So again, this is the first presentation, and I know that we'll need to come back and address some of those logistics and the ways that we process these applications.
Thank you, Brigitte. That my big question, which I was thinking anybody watching this would be thinking about, was more housing is great, but how is it going to impact our district? And I think our last bit of conversation answered that question for us. So yeah, I think this is a positive idea, and I appreciate your time.
Thank
Come
you.
talk to us.
Thank you for volunteering your time too for the school board.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the LBL ESD Local Service Plan second read. So does anyone have any questions about the plan or comments you'd like to share? Do you want to come?
If you have a doozy for Jason, I'm sure
Yeah.
he'd be happy to answer it.
I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I also have some other just summary documents that you might be interested in looking at later. I can get those out. So.
Okay.
Well, Jason, I just want to highlight my appreciation for the work you do. The work and the services, both tiers, reflect some really critical things that you do. And I shared this in a previous meeting when we needed assistance in making sure registration is equitable for those who really want to identify in specific ethnicities or racial backgrounds that are not reflected in the federal census. The ESD stepped up and helped us make that work, and I can see its effects going beyond our district and beyond the ESD. So
yeah,
just want
thank
to
you very
highlight
much.
our appreciation for your staff and for you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great example of something where the collaboration between our districts can actually bring about change for everyone in the region. And so, you know, that's an example of something that Corvallis asked for, and it's a really important thing that we have within our student information system. And then we are able to roll that out for the whole region. And sometimes folks don't even know what they are missing until it's there in front of them. And there are other districts like, this is great, you know. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I don't have any questions either. I think of the ESD, it's one of those things that I didn't even know existed until I was on the school board. I think a lot of members of the community don't know that ESDs exist, but it's a great way for districts to work together to have access to important resources we couldn't have on our own. So it's
Absolutely.
good work.
Very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So we need a motion
Madam Chair?
this evening. Yes.
I move to affirm the 2023-2025 Lynn Benton Lincoln Education Service District Local Service Plan.
I'll second.
It has been moved by Director Algebra and seconded by Director Tomany that we approve the 2023-24 Lynn Benton Lincoln Educational Service District Local Service Plan. Director Algebra, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Tomany?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
And Director Baker has been excused for the rest of the evening. And I vote aye, so that passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have these with Kim, if you'd like to look at, there's just some data in there that you might be interested in. I put actually the data for all of our school districts if you'd like to just be able to look at that. Thank you very much.
So, moving on to the bond update with Dale and Kim.
A lot of information was provided in the board packet, and we're just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Just want to say, you make it always hard to ask questions because you give us all the answers that we anticipate through the reports. Much appreciation, Kim, and just want to lean in on the comments that you shared earlier today with Leadership Corvallis. Corvallis is looked at as a leader in equity in construction and in this work. So thank you. We're getting close to the finish line, and with that, as Ryan mentioned, people get anxious toward the end. But I have a really full faith in the work that you do and the stewardship on prioritizing the last few dollars to fulfill the bond promise. And it looks like from the report that we will. Thank you.
I don't have a question either. As Sammy said, the report answers our questions. So we've gotten good at this over the last few years. So thank you. It is great to see more and more completed, 99% there, and look forward to getting everything done this summer, even as we're biting our nails to make sure we get through all the promises.
Earlier tonight, we were talking about the strengths of this program, and one of the things that continues to come up has been that one of the things that's made this doable has been the flexibility of staff. And I know that it's been difficult at times for people as you think about moving out of your building, or you think about trying to teach with someone on the roof or somebody pounding outside your door. It's been a challenge for people, and at the same time, people have really been gracious in that, both families and staff. So I think that's another piece that sometimes we overlook because it has been difficult, but we're at the point now where we're seeing those outcomes in these spaces like this, right? And so again, it just reminded me earlier to think about how some schools, a lot of the construction happened during the pandemic, so there was less of an impact. Other schools have gone on for long periods of time, and that's been more challenging for some of our schools. So again, the flexibility as we get to the finish line is really important, and we'll be done by the end of the summer with all of our projects. So we're close, and that's again attributed to your work as well. So thank you.
Do people need a break? Are we move on to the next one? The next one should be quick. I can't turn it off or on when I need to. The next item on our agenda is the Diane F. Seif Memorial Scholarship approval, which is so early this year. We are using last year's application. So this is a result of the work we did at our last meeting during our work session around setting goals for the next year with our evaluation. So we kind of set ourselves up to do it early this year because that work was done. So any questions, comments?
I have a serious comment, Madam Chair. Your habits of finishing on time and breaking the record has been noted, but this time also I want to just note, while in the history of this scholarship we submit last minute, sometimes a little bit after the last minute, submitting 4 months in advance. Well done, thank you. And in addition, I want just to highlight the topic of what we're about to do, looking and reviewing and revising policies through an equity lens that directly impacts students. Really appreciate the work that got us here to identify the criticality of this step. And I would just encourage us as the leadership works on the design of this scholarship program activities, that also we center the students and involve our students' representatives in this process and throughout those trainings.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the goals we set for this year. You're looking at policy that directly impacts our students, I think is something that's, we haven't had a process for doing that. And so putting something in place so we can have a process next year that can be ongoing, I think is going to have a positive impact on our students and our schools as we really carefully evaluate those policies. So I'm excited about it. You know, I cannot take full credit for getting it done early because it was a matter of scheduling for the project we're involved in this year. So, yeah. Good. So with that, do we need to vote on that? So I need a motion. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Yeah. Is there a motion?
I move to approve participation in the HAF 2023 to 24 Oregon School Boards Association's Diane, Sammy, can you tell me how to pronounce?
I think if so.
FSUF Memorial Scholarship Program.
It has been moved by Director Tomini and seconded by Director Al-Adraba that we approve participation in the HAF 2022-23-24 OSBA Diane FSAF Memorial Scholarship Program. Director Al-Adraba, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Tomini?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That passes unanimously. So we have work to do next year.
Can I ask a question now that you've approved that?
Yeah.
Just that's also allows the board to be involved in scholarships for students. And so just knowing that that's part of the process as well. So I believe Vince is still working with the foundation to put those applications together for, so we do the professional development and it allows us to fund scholarships for students at our high schools. So just wanting to make sure that that process is still in place because that's a big incentive for us to continue to do that professional development work.
Yeah, I touched base with Angela Hibbard, who's the director of the Corvallis Public Schools Foundation, who helps us coordinate the selection and distribution of the scholarship money. And she was asking if the money was available this year, and I said, yes, it is, and we are submitting an application for next year, so count us in. Okay. So next on our agenda is consolidated action. As a reminder, the items on this portion of the agenda are for action. Does anyone have a question about anything in consolidated action this evening? And this includes the fundraising request from Corvallis High School. So if anybody has questions about that, we can address that.
Just for a point of recognition, the appointments for the budget committee.
Go ahead.
So just want to appreciate staff for putting forward a great candidate, and also recognize that we're appointing for a vacancy of a phenomenal woman who passed away, Andrea Thornberry. She have served the community very well, and she will be missed dearly. And also I want to thank the recommendations, and maybe if Ryan and staff can introduce the applicants, I would appreciate an introduction. if they're here.
Olivia, would you like to do that?
Oh. Sure.
Hi, I'm Nikki Mendoza. I understand that I was selected as a possible nominee for the Budget Committee. I truly appreciate the consideration. I am born and raised in Corvallis, and the CHS team was here unbeknownst to me, but I did graduate from CHS in 1990. And I'm happy to be back in Corvallis and happy to help the board and the district in any way I can.
Thank you, and welcome, and thanks for stepping up.
Yes, thank you for being willing to serve our district and our students. Anything else that we want to pull out? Nope. With that, I will consider a motion.
I move to approve consolidated action as presented.
Second?
It's been moved by Director Al-Abdraba and seconded by Director Tomini that we approve the items in consolidated action. Director Al-Abdraba.
Aye.
Director Tomini.
Aye.
Director Adams.
Aye.
And I vote aye. That passes unanimously.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay, thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is consolidated information. As a reminder, the items on this portion of the agenda are for discussion. Would anyone like to discuss an item in consolidated information? No? Sammy's, yeah.
Thank God we don't have the filibuster. There's no way. Which policy is it for the math the math and the graduation? Yes, IKF, thank you.
Does anyone, so Sammy wants to ask about IKF. Does anyone else have an item they want to look at? Nope, okay.
So my question was if you can just give us a little bit of a background. Is this a state mandated policy change, and what's the motivation behind it?
Yes, so this is a required change for the graduation policy based on language around the definition of an educational program in this state, and it's also a modification allowing for students to earn world language credit through sign language, their heritage language, or languages other than their primary language.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is board member comments. Does anyone have anything they wish to share?
I'll just thank the teachers who have been, and educators who have been coming to our board meetings. That means a lot to us to have you here and for you to show up and for you not only to remind us that you're here, we think about you all the time too. And something that I'd like to encourage the board to think about as we move forward with board goals is so much of what we do and so much of what you do focuses on students, and it has to. That's why we're all here. We're all here elevating students, looking for opportunities for them, but to really think deeply too as we move forward with board goals and revising those board goals, to think about how important educator experience is, not just student experience, not just as a product of getting to student outcomes, but also as a way of life and educator well-being. And there is some mention of that in the current board goals, but not as an outcome in and of itself. And so I'd just like us to carry that with us as we have these conversations forward, and just really appreciate you for taking the time that you do, for all that you do, and on top of that, to be here tonight with us too. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Thank you, educators. Anyone else have something they want to share? No? With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for being here.